Farid! Farid!
She had carried her husband for 18 years. That morning she came home and he was gone. She described her husband.
Oh, Rahima, I am here. Who are you searching for?
18 years, one woman, one choice. This is that story.
She was running through the streets calling his name. Rahima had gone out early that morning, as she did every morning, to do the work no one else would do for them. Work that a woman of her ancestry should never have needed to do. She spun thread for other women's households. She carried small coins home in secret so that her sick husband could eat. But when she came home that afternoon, the small hut was empty. Ayyub was not inside. Ayyub could not walk on his own. He had not been able to stand without help for years. She searched the hut. She searched the area around it. She ran from house to house asking whether anyone had seen him. Her voice broke as she asked. Her husband was the prophet of God, and she had lost him. Then she saw a young man standing on the road. She asked him, "Have you seen the man who was staying in the hut nearby?" An old man, ill, unable to walk. The young man looked at her carefully and said, "Describe him." What did he look like? She paused, confused by the question. Then she said, in his youth, his face looked like yours. The young man smiled. "Oh, Rahima," he said, "I am here. Who are you searching for?" She looked at him. She looked again. Her husband had been old and thin and covered in wounds for 18 years. This man was young and strong and completely well. She said, "This cannot be. My husband was sick. His name was Ayyub." And the young man said, "Oh, Rahima, that sick man was me. Allah has restored what was taken." She ran to him and they wept together, and neither of them could stop. Before we can understand why that moment was the most important moment in both their lives, we need to go back to the very beginning. Because this is not a story about suffering. It is a story about what is found inside a person when everything outside them has been taken away. Stay with me. Before the trials came, Ayyub was the kind of person that made a city feel like it had enough. He had vast lands and abundant livestock. He had wealth that reached into every corner of the region where he lived, near the land of Sham, in the area known as Haran. He had 12 sons, all faithful, all following in his father's way. His wife Rahima came from a noble line, a descendant of the Prophet Yusuf, and she matched him in character the way iron matches iron. But here is what made Ayyub genuinely different from simply a wealthy man. He could not eat without guests. This was not politeness. This was discomfort in the truest sense. If the meal was prepared and no one had been invited to share it, he felt something wrong in himself that would not settle until the table had been opened to someone who needed it. Many families lived in his community specifically because of him. He clothed the poor, paid for weddings of families who could not afford them, cared for orphans and widows as if their welfare were a personal obligation. The name Ayyub means the one who returns, the one who turns back. He was given this name because at every crossroads, in every difficulty, his first and only direction was back toward Allah. Stop and think about that for a moment. Before any test came, before any hardship was even imagined, his name already told you how he would respond to it. The Quran tells us in Surah Al-Anbiya that Ayyub was among those whom Allah had granted knowledge and wisdom. Whenever he praised Allah, the angels in the heavens would send peace and blessings upon him. His gratitude was not occasional. It was constant, particular, specific. He did not give vague thanks. He noticed what had been given. And that was precisely the thing that Satan could not break. Satan had been trying to mislead Ayyub for a long time. He had tried every approach available to him, and every single one had failed. In a narration from Islamic tradition, Satan went before Allah and made his complaint in frustration. He said, "O my Lord, I have tried every method to mislead your servant Ayyub. Nothing works." Allah asked him, "Why do you think you cannot reach him?" And what Satan said next is important, because it reveals exactly how he understood the relationship between blessing and faith. Satan said, "You have given him vast lands, abundant crops, countless animals, and endless blessings. You have not tested him with hardship. I tried to plant greed in his heart so he would become ungrateful, but every time I whispered to him, he said, I seek refuge in my Lord from the accursed. All praise belongs to Allah, the giver of every blessing. Satan continued, you also gave him obedient children, 12 sons who respect their parents. If you remove his wealth and his blessings, I will certainly be able to mislead him. And Allah said something that we need to understand correctly. He did not say Satan was right. He said, my servant Ayyub will never turn away from me. The more I test him, the more he will seek refuge in me. I will test him so that he becomes an example for all of humanity until the end of time. This is the theological foundation of the entire story. The test was not punishment. It was demonstration. Ayyub was not being shown what a person looks like when they fail. He was being shown what a person looks like when the only thing left is the Lord himself. And then the tests began. The wealth was taken first. It did not go all at once. It went the way real losses come, in sudden disasters that seem to have natural explanations. A flood, a windstorm, separate catastrophes occurring close enough together that the total became incomprehensible. Imagine you are giving advice to the people gathered around you, speaking with the calm of someone who has spent a lifetime building wisdom, when a crying shepherd approaches. That shepherd was Satan, wearing a borrowed form. He came closer and said to Ayyub, a terrible disaster has happened. Allah has destroyed all your wealth and property. Everyone around them stopped and stared. But Ayyub alayhi salam did not change his expression. He did not collapse. He did not demand an explanation. He praised and thanked Allah. Satan was astonished. He tried again. He described everything that was gone in detail. Where are your peaceful lands now? Where are your countless animals? Your great orchards? Your estates? Your entire life? All of it is gone. Do you think any of it is coming back? Ayyub answered with a question of his own. He asked, who gave me that wealth and property? Then he answered it himself. My Lord, he owned my wealth, and he owned me. If he wills, he gives. If he wills, he takes back. No one questions what he does. Satan had expected grief. He encountered theology. Stop and think about that for a moment. Ayyub had not yet lost his children. He had not yet lost his health. He had only lost the wealth. And his response was not performed. It was not bravery covering fear. It came from a man whose heart had never actually been attached to the things it appeared to possess. How much of what we mourn losing did we ever actually hold? The second test was harder. After the wealth was gone, Ayyub's children died in an earthquake. His 12 sons, all faithful, all studying together when the earth moved and the building came down. Satan came again, this time in the form of a teacher, a man who would have known those children, who would have had reason to weep over them. He approached Ayyub and described the deaths with a kind of precision that was designed to cause the maximum possible pain. He described the building falling. He described the sounds. He said each one was torn apart. Their cries were unbearable, and you stand there calmly. Ayyub was a prophet, yes, but he was also a father. And the text tells us something important about what happened next. He wept. This is worth staying with. He did not feel nothing. He did not perform serenity. His heart overflowed with the mercy that a father feels for children, and tears came from his eyes. He was a human being experiencing the most devastating human loss. But even inside that weeping, his response was not rebellion. He accepted Allah's decree. He said to Satan, recognizing him now, my children, my wealth, everything I have are only trusts from my Lord. If he wills, he gives. If he wills, he takes back. In every situation, I praise my Lord. The difference between Ayyub and us is not that he felt less. It is that what he felt did not reach the place where rebellion lives. The trials were not over. The illness came last. It is not named specifically in the Quran. What is described is its severity and its duration. The disease spread across his entire body. His skin, his tongue, his ability to eat and move and function in the most basic ways. The narrations say that there was not a healthy place left on his body from his head to his feet. Stop and think about that for a moment. Not days, not months, 18 years. He suffered in this condition for 18 years. During that time, he could barely lift food to his mouth with his wounded hands. His tongue swelled until swallowing became difficult. His appearance changed so completely that people who had known him stopped recognizing him. The Quran records the prayer he eventually offered. In Surah Al-Anbiya verse 83, truly harm has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. What is remarkable about that prayer is when he said it, he did not say it on the first day. He did not say it in the first year. He held it for so long that when Rahima once gently suggested he might ask Allah to remove this suffering, his response stopped her completely. He asked her how long did our healthy and happy days last? She said 80 years. He said I would be ashamed to complain to my Lord before the time of hardship equals the time of ease. He was not waiting to see if Allah would notice. He was not running out of patience. He had spent 80 years receiving everything good. He did not believe that 18 years of suffering gave him the standing to demand relief. This is the patience of Ayyub, not passive endurance, not numbness. A man doing arithmetic with his own life and concluding, quietly, that he had no complaint. She never left. In a world where everyone else had reasons to stay away, Rahima stayed. She had been raised as the granddaughter of Yusuf alayhi salam, from a lineage of people who understood long suffering and maintained their character inside it. She served her husband without complaint. When Satan spread whispers through the city that Ayyub's illness was contagious, and when the neighbors who had once been fed in his house stopped coming, and when even his relatives began to avoid them, Rahima was still there. She worked. She went into the city quietly and spun thread for other women's households. She took what she earned and brought it back to the small hut where her husband lay. Some women who knew who she was sent small amounts of money in secret. If others had found out, those women would have been punished for associating with the exiled couple. And when the city finally sent word that both Ayyub and Rahima had to leave or be stoned, Rahima did not debate the injustice of it. She lifted her sick husband onto her back. Not a single person helped her. Ayyub, who had once fed 1,000 guests in his home, who had clothed the poor and funded the weddings of strangers, was carried out of the city by one woman while everyone who had benefited from his generosity watched from a safe distance. This detail is in the story for a reason. We need to see it clearly. The wound of abandonment, as Ayyub himself would later describe it, hurt more than any physical wound. Not the loss of wealth, not even the illness. The hardest part of the entire trial was the words and distance of people who turned away. She laid him down on the sand outside the city. She found a stone and placed it under his head as a pillow. She built a small shelter from wooden planks with her own hands. And then she continued serving him. Every day, for years, he lay sick in that small hut, and he continued to do what he had always done. He reminded travelers who passed by to remember Allah. He advised patience. He gave gratitude. The body was destroyed. The mission continued. There is a detail in this part of the story that does not receive enough attention. Every night before dawn, during those 18 years of illness, Ayyub would hear what is described in the narrations as a divine address. A voice that said, "Oh, our sick servant, how are you?" He was not being ignored. He was being asked about. In his most broken condition, in a hut outside a city that had expelled him, the address of Allah found him every night before the morning prayer. And he wept when it stopped. We will come back to that. Satan did not give up on Rahima. If he could not reach Ayyub directly, perhaps he could reach him through the one person who was still by his side. He came to her first as a man who recognized her lineage. He said, "Are you not the daughter of Ephraim, the son of Yusuf? Why are you working like this? Why are you carrying this burden?" She answered him directly, "I am the wife of Ayyub, the prophet of Allah. He is being tested. I am his servant. With Allah's help, I will continue as long as I can." Satan heard this answer and said, "You are ruining yourself. What if the disease passes to you?" She said, "I cannot repay my husband for his years of kindness to me. We spent many years in comfort and blessing. How could I leave him now in his illness? And she went on her way. When she returned home and told Ayyub what had happened, he recognized who she had been speaking with immediately. He warned her to be careful and stay away from this man. Satan came a second time, as a physician. He approached her and said, I can cure your husband, but I have conditions. You will add something forbidden to his drink, and when he is healed, you will stand before me and say that I gave the cure. She returned home immediately and told Ayyub everything. Satan came a third time. He appeared as a handsome man who blocked her path. He spoke of his lands and his gardens, and suggested that they could be hers. She said, I am the wife of the Prophet of Allah. I will never turn my heart to anyone other than him. And Satan left in defeat. 3 times he came for her. 3 times she was not reached. This is the spiritual stature of Rahima, blessed mother of the believers in this tradition. She was not only a loyal wife, she was a person of genuine faith who understood what she was choosing. After all of this, after the wealth was gone and the children were gone and the health was gone, and the city was gone and the only shelter was a hut on the sand, Ayyub finally prayed the prayer. He said, as the Quran records in Surah Al-Anbiya verse 83, truly, harm has touched me. And you are the most merciful of the merciful. Read that prayer again carefully. He did not list his suffering. He did not make demands. He named the fact harm has touched me. And he named the attribute you are the most merciful. He was not informing Allah of something Allah did not know. He was placing his condition in front of the one who already knew it, trusting that the knowing and the mercy were the same thing. This is the haunting mystery at the center of this story. The prayer that finally came was not a prayer of desperation. It was a prayer of complete surrender. He was not begging. He was simply speaking to his Lord, the way a person speaks to someone they trust completely, without the armor of careful words. The Quran continues in verse 84, so we responded to him and removed what afflicted him of adversity. And we restored his family to him and the like thereof with them as mercy from us and a reminder for the worshippers of Allah. The response to total surrender was total restoration. Rahima had gone out in the early morning. It was around the time of Asr. While she was away, Jibril came to Ayyub and said, when Allah tested you with hardship, you showed patience. Now Allah will give you health and blessings. Strike your foot on the ground. Ayyub obeyed. He struck the ground. 2 springs came up from where his foot had touched the earth. One of hot water, one of cold. He washed with the hot water, and the wounds on his body healed. He drank from the cold water, and his internal illness was cured by the permission of Allah. Then something happened that is described in a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Golden locusts began to fall before him. He gathered them into his garment. Allah said to him, O Ayyub, have I not returned your wealth to you? He replied, yes, my Lord. You have restored me, but I cannot turn away from your treasures of goodness and blessing. Whatever comes from you, I accept. For you are the giver, and how could I reject what you give? He had been restored, and the first thing he said upon being restored was not relief. It was gratitude for the act of giving itself. Jibril dressed him in new garments. He stood in the open air, strong and young, for the first time in 18 years. And then he waited for his wife to come home. Rahima returned and found the hut empty. She searched inside. She searched outside. She asked every person she could find. No one had seen him. Her husband could not walk. Her husband could not stand without help. If he was not in the hut, something terrible had happened. She ran through the streets calling for him. And then she saw a young man on the road. She asked him if he had seen the sick man who stayed in the hut nearby. He asked her to describe the man she was looking for. She described what she remembered of him in his youth, his height, his face, his bearing. The young man listened to her description. Then he said, by Allah, in his youth he looked just like the man you are describing. She stopped. She looked at him. Something in her began to understand before her mind caught up with it. And he said, O Rahima, I am here. Whom are you searching for? She said, this cannot be. My husband was old. He was sick. He was my companion and I thought I had lost him. He said, "O Rahima, that sick man was me. Allah has restored my health." She ran to him. She embraced him. They wept together. After 18 years of carrying him, she had come home to find him standing. And then by the mercy of Allah, she too was restored to the youth and beauty of her earlier years. The narrations say they lived happily together for another 70 years and were blessed with 16 sons. What was taken was returned, and it was returned doubled. But there is one detail in this story that most people pass over quickly. And it is the detail that tells you who Ayyub really was. After he was healed, after the wealth was restored, after Rahima returned, after everything that had been taken was given back and multiplied, Ayyub was found weeping before the morning prayer. The people around him asked, "Why do you weep? Your illness is gone. Your wealth has returned. You are young again. Your wife is with you. What is left to grieve?" He said, "Every night before dawn, during all those years of illness, I used to hear a voice say, 'Oh, our sick servant, how are you?' Now that time has come again. And I did not hear, 'Oh, our healthy servant, how are you?' That is why I am crying." Stop and think about that for a moment. He was not weeping for what he had lost. He was weeping for what the illness had made possible. In his most broken condition, in a hut outside a city that had expelled him, the conversation had been constant. The address had been personal. And now that the suffering was over, he missed it. This is the spiritual depth that makes Ayyub's story unlike any other story of patience in all of human memory. He was not enduring his trial in order to reach the end of it. He was present inside it. He was with Allah inside the suffering. And when the suffering ended, something went quiet that he had grown to love. If you hear nothing else from this story, hear that. They returned to the city. The people who had driven them out saw a young man and a young woman walking through the city gates with a dignity that was not the dignity of people who had been away on a journey. It was something different, something harder to name. The news moved through the streets. "This is Ayyub alayhi salam. This is the Prophet of Allah. Come and welcome him." He returned to his old home. All the wealth was there. The land was there. And some of the people who had turned their backs on him came back. They apologized for abandoning him, for sending him out of the city with his sick body on his wife's back, for choosing fear over gratitude. The Quran describes this moment in Surah Sad verse 43. "We restored his family to him and doubled their number as a mercy from us and a reminder for people of understanding." A reminder for people of understanding. The story was not preserved for Ayyub's sake. He did not need to be reminded of anything. He had lived it. The story was preserved for everyone who would come after him and find themselves in a smaller version of the same place, asking the same questions, trying to understand whether what they are losing is punishment or preparation. Let me ask you something honestly, and I want you to sit with the question before you answer it. What is the heaviest thing you are carrying right now? A financial struggle that has lasted longer than you expected. A health situation that has not resolved. A relationship that broke in a way that has not healed. A loss that the people around you seem to move past faster than you could. Work that dried up. Dreams that went quiet. These are real things. They cause real pain. I am not going to tell you they are small. But consider what Ayyub carried, and consider how he carried it. He lost wealth on a scale that would have sustained entire communities. He lost 12 children. He lost his health so completely that there was not a healthy place left on his body from his feet to his head. He lost the people of his city, the relationships he had spent a lifetime building, the social world his generosity had created. And then he was carried out of that city on his wife's back. And for 18 years he said Alhamdulillah, not because it did not hurt. It hurt. He wept for his children. He felt the abandonment of people he had fed and clothed. He lay in a hut on the sand unable to move while his wife secretly spun thread to keep them alive. He felt all of it. But he had built something inside himself during the 80 years of ease that did not collapse during the 18 years of trial. He had spent 8 decades noticing what was given, thanking the giver specifically and continuously, refusing to let his heart attach to the gift rather than the one who gave it. So when the gifts were taken, the relationship with the giver remained. The earth and everything above and below it belong entirely to Allah. He has no partner, no equal, and no companion. He is the owner of the Day of Judgment. On that day, we will answer for what we did with what we were given, both in ease and in suffering. We will all leave this world. Every day, people depart from homes they never imagined leaving, from lives they believed they could not manage without. Youth fades, pleasures end, the excitement and the fear both dissolve, and one day it will be our turn. What we are preparing in that time is the only thing that goes with us. Ayyub's wounds did not reach his tongue or his heart. They stayed on his skin. What we carry is the opposite danger, wounds that reach inward, not outward, that touch faith and weaken the capacity to receive what is still being given. His prayer is available to us now, in the same words he used: truly, harm has touched me. And you are the most merciful of the merciful. You do not need to have lost everything to say it. You do not need to qualify your suffering against his before you are allowed to bring it to Allah. You just need to say it. May Allah grant us even a fraction of the patience of Ayyub. May He make us among those who are found, in ease and in suffering, still facing the same direction. May He grant us the company of the prophets whose names we have remembered today, and may our last breath be a breath of gratitude. Ameen. Tell me in the comments which part of Ayyub's story stayed with you longest. I read every one.